Good day everyone. So, we hope na nakasettle na po ang lahat and also may power na po sa inyo or may kuryente na po, no? So, today we are about to discuss the Western art and its influence to the Philippine art, especially in the Philippine architecture. But before diving into our topic, let us first learn the objectives of this module. First one is we are going to identify the characteristics and various influences of Western art to the Philippine arts. So upon discussing, we will going to identify the characteristics or yung mga unique features ng bawat periods and its influence to the Philippine arts. The next one, we will going to compare the styles, design, and other features of the characteristics of arts that evolve in the different periods. So dito, we will be having 8 periods. So may 8 periods and then we will going to identify and compare kung ano ba yung pinagkaiba ng style ng period na to sa period na to, kung ano yung pinagkaiba ng design or yung features nila and so on. Then lastly, we are going to analyze the Western and indigenous influences to the Philippine architecture. So moving on, in the latter part of the 19th century, it can be observed that the Philippine art is westernized with the exposure to European liberal and secular ideas where artistic creations became highly specialistic, separate from everyday life and focused on the assertion of individual ego and driven by commercial success. So sa part ng 19th century, ma-observe na natin yung mga influences ng Western art dito sa Philippines. Mainly because sa Spanish colonization and also sa pag-open ng Suez Canal. So the opening of Suez Canal in 1869 commenced the participation of the Philippines to the galleon trade, which gave access to Filipinos to Western artworks and ideas through education and trade during the Spanish colonization. So nung excuse me. So nung nag-open yung Suez Canal noong 1869 ay nakipag-participate yung Philippines sa galleon trade, which in return nakakuha sila or which gave them access to the artworks of the western countries, especially sa Spain. And kapag ma-observe din nyo yung mga church natin today and yung mga significant places, iba yung pagkaka-design dahil may influence yung Western architecture. The Filipinos' exposure to Western art influenced various art forms in the country, including significant and historical architectures. So nasabi ko nga kanina, kung mapapansin niyo yung mga simbahan and mga significant places like the Manila Cathedral, yung Quiapo Church, yung Manila Central Post Office, and also the National Museum or even the Malacanang, iba yung pagkaka-design niya dahil nga sa influence ng Western countries sa atin, especially na-introduce sa atin ito because of the Spanish colonization. Kung mapapansin nyo sa mga simbahan, na mga matatandang simbahan or mga luma simbahan, parang magkakaparehas yung design niya, na gawa ito sa ganyan, gawa ito sa ganito, dahil nga sa pag-introduce na din ng Spain sa atin sa Catholicism. Then the Western art influence could be seen in many art forms in the Philippines, like in paintings, sculptures, installations, and architecture. So hindi lang sa paintings, sa sculptures, sa installations, makikita yung influence ng mga Western countries sa atin, kundi sa architecture na rin. So, it is notable to see the Western influence in the Philippine architecture especially in the churches and buildings that were erected where Western influence fused with the indigenous Filipino designs. So nag-combine daw yung yung features, yung design ng Western at saka yung indigenous Filipino designs. So, let's start. Sabi ko nga kanina, may walong different periods dito. The first one is the Greek, followed by the Roman, then the Christian, the Gothic, the Byzantine, the Renaissance, Baroque, and lastly, the Neoclassicism. So let us discuss first yung sa Greek. Dito sa period na to, nahati po siya sa apat na period. Namely the geometric, the archaic, the classical, and lastly the Hellenistic. Sa geometric and archaic, nag-focus po sila sa pagpaint and paggawa ng mga vases. Pero sa latter part na ng mga periods na to, nag-start na din po sila gumawa ng mga sculptures. Pero yung unique features or characteristics sa geometric period ay they use geometric shapes and patterns. Kapag ma-observe nyo dito sa left side, ay may dalawang vases dito. And pag nakikita nyo, is mainly or dominantly yung ginawa dito is pag-paint ng mga patterns and also shapes. Although may human figures na dito, hindi pa ganong ka-detailed or ka-intricate yung pagkakagawa. While the archaic period naman, dito na sila nag-focus sa human figures. Kapag nakikita nyo dito sa two last pictures, medyo mas intricate na or mas detalyado na yung pagkakapaint nila sa mga human figures and also sa paggawa ng sculptures. And sa classical period naman, dito na pinamalas ng mga Greek yung artistic abilities nila sa paggawa ng sculpture and also sa paggawa ng infrastructures or sa architecture. Dito nag-rebuild na sila ng mga temples nila which focus on the creation of artworks. Pag nakikita nyo dito sa mga pictures na ito, may mga intricate designs na sila na ini-incorporate sa kanilang architecture. Then lastly, the Hellenistic period. The Hellenistic period is naganap during the time of Alexander the Great, which focused on showcasing emotions in different artworks and depicted reality. So dito sa Hellenistic period, mas detalyado na yung pagkakagawa ng mga mukha, yung anatomy, and also yung mga different mga iba pang mga elements sa kanilang sculptures. So nag-focus na sila dito sa pag-showcase ng emotions and also sa mga details ng mga damit, ng human anatomy, and so on. Overall, the artworks show balance and pose varied emotions evoked by subjects of the artworks. Great art shows artistic perfection, and the golden age of Greek art emerged in 5th century as shown in paintings and vases. So yung mga Greek talaga, may pagka-perfectionist. So yung ina-achieve nila sa kanilang mga artworks and also art sa architecture is balance, yung pose, yung symmetry, and mga different elements pa ng architecture. But mostly, yung ina-achieve nila ay artistic perfection. Sa sculpture naman, focus sila sa proportion ng figures. So dapat kung ano yung anatomy ng kanilang subject, yun din yung gagawin nila. So ina-achieve nila yung perfection and also balance. Sobrang intricate na yung pagkakagawa ng mga Greek sculptures. And pag i-compare natin yung mga sculpture today, mas malayong, mas mahasa or mas magaling yung mga pagkakagawa ng mga human figures or mga human sculptures dito sa period na to. And then, the most significant contribution ng Greek sa architecture ay yung tatlong types or famous columns from the Doric, the Ionic, and Corinthian orders. Each order has its unique design and which is popularly used in many architectural buildings until now. Pag nakikita nyo, evident dito yung pag-evolve ng kanilang artistic capabilities dahil mas detalyado na din yung pagkakagawa ng columns nila. So from Doric sa left side to Ionic sa middle and then naging Corinthian siya sa last or sa right side. And quick fact lang, no? Yung sa Corinthian order, pag na-observe ninyo, ay parang may mga dahon-dahon siya or mga spirals and all. This is the most striking element sa Corinthian order which influenced by the acanthus leaves. So yung acanthus, siya yung plant and then incorporate nila or parang naging inspiration na siya sa order na ito. And these characteristics can be seen in the sculpture of showing vividly the figure of the supreme god in Greek mythology in the statue of Zeus, and the temple of Zeus is being lifted by massive and intricate columns that mirrors the strength of the Greek god. So, yung sa example dito, yung statue and temple ni Zeus, pag nakikita nyo, sobrang lalaki ng columns nila. And also, yung pagkakagawa is sobrang detalyado talaga. This shows na or this mirrors the strength na tinataglay ng kanilang God na si Zeus. And pag na-observe din natin sa temple ni Zeus is may perfection talaga, no? So, pag hinati natin to sa dalawa, syempre vertically, is or disregarding yung pediment. Pag nakikita yung pediment is yun yung top part po ng temple na may sculptures ng figures ng mga kabayo and also their gods. Pag hinati natin to sa dalawa vertically, kahit sa inside or kahit sa loob ng temple na ito, magiging ano pa rin siya, magiging identical siya sa left and right side. So evidently, dito sa Pilipinas, na-adapt ito ng different infrastructures including the mausoleum owned by the Po family at the Manila Memorial Park. So this is a huge 8-column mausoleum, is a reminiscent of the Greek Parthenon. So kung familiar kayo sa Parthenon, may influence dito yun. And ancient temple siya, dedicated to goddess of Athena. And this is the largest of all the mausoleums in the 128-hectare Manila Memorial Park, sitting on a 1,383 square meter land or about 500 lots. So ang laki niya, di ba? And then according to the Manila Memorial Park Management, the structure is owned by the Po family. So that concludes our topic sa Greek, no? So let's move on sa Roman naman.
Roman art was heavily influenced by Greek sculptures, which embodied a humanistic basis. Romans adopt many Greek styles, especially in their statuary. Sa topic nga ni Messiah, Greek sculptures often showed very realistic people, kaya tinawag na humanistic. They produced realistic portraits, showing the specific and individual. Unlike kasi sa ibang artists na tinatry nilang gawing perfect ang tao through their art, Roman artists focus on making portraits that look exactly like the real person. I-include nila yung imperfections and unique features ng tao, like wrinkles, stretch marks, scars, and birthmarks. While the Parthenon, a famous Greek temple, has a triangular roof, many Christian churches feature grand, rounded ceilings called domes. These domes became a popular choice for Christian houses of worship because They create a feeling of grandeur and impressiveness. This architectural idea wasn't directly copied from the Parthenon, but rather influenced by Roman architecture, which itself drew inspiration from Greece. The Romans modified Greek columns design and contributed new designs known as Tuscan, Roman Doric, and Composite. Tuscan is a Roman invention inspired by Greek Doric. Tuscan is a simpler version of Doric, which was plain and sturdy. Ginagamit ito mostly sa warehouse, docks, or sturdy foundations, while Roman Doric is a Roman adoption of the Greek Doric style, mostly used in public buildings, temples, and government structures. It conveyed a sense of strength, stability, and formality. Last one is composite. Composite is a mix of two Greek styles, which is Ionic and Corinthian, combining the scrolls and leaves into a new design. Composite is for important buildings or to create a particular decorative effect, often used in palaces, temples, and grand public places. From the grand domes of Roman architecture, heavily influenced by Greek art, to the realism of Roman sculptures, Western artistic traditions significantly influenced Philippine art. The spread of Catholicism by the Spanish introduced religious themes and figures, while Filipino artists creatively adapted these styles to their own traditions. This resulted in a unique blend where Western techniques and themes met local cultural expressions. Traces of Gothic arcs, Renaissance time drama, and neoclassical balance can also be found in some Philippine artworks, showcasing the lasting impact of Western artistic movements. For instance, the Immaculate Conception Cathedral in Cubao, Quezon City, showcases a fascinating architectural heritage where Roman influences beautifully blend with local Filipino traditions. Roman architecture is known for its grandeur, often featuring strong, symmetrical structures with tall columns and expansive arcs. If you look closely at the Immaculate Conception Cathedral, you might see elements that echo this Roman style. For example, the cathedral's facade might have tall columns reaching towards the sky, or perhaps large rounded arcs framing the entrance. These features, well adapted to the local context, pay homage to the enduring influence of Roman architectural principles.
So next is the Christian art. It is a sacred art which uses subjects, themes, and imagery from Christianity. It includes various mediums such as painting, sculpture, architecture, and more. Christian art has a rich history from the early days of Christianity to the present day. The early Christian artists adopted and reinterpreted the symbolic vocabulary of Roman art to express their faith. They adorned the walls of catacombs, which is the underground burial places. And during the medieval period, Christian art was deeply woven into the societal fabric, serving as a tool for education, a symbol of the church power, and a source of spiritual inspiration. And the example here is the piece of Kyoto's named Crucifixion, a poignant depiction of Christ's sacrifice, praises the lower church of the Basilica of San Francisco de Assisi. And in the modern era, Christian art began to explore new forms of mediums. Artists started experimenting with abstract representations, symbolic imagery, and unconventional materials. These changes were driven by a desire to express personal faith, to critique or question religious institutions, and to engage with contemporary social and political issues. And one of the example here is the Sacrament of the Last Supper by Salvador Dali. This painting offers a unique interpretation of the biblical scene. So overall, Christian art is not just about beautiful paintings or stunning architecture. It's also about the human quest for meaning, the expression of spiritual beliefs, and the celebration of artistic activity.
Gothic architecture. The Gothic style of architecture and art originated in the Middle Ages and was prevalent in Europe between the mid-12th century to 16th century. Its architecture characterized by high buildings, intricate aesthetics, large spaces, and expensive walls. It is rooted in French architecture and the style was originally referred to as French work or opus francigenum. So contemporaries use this expression to describe Gothic architectural styles that spread from northern France throughout Europe, and this was used extensively by religious beliefs, especially the Roman Catholic Church. Examples of Gothic architecture. In the 12th and 13th centuries, advances in engineering enabled architects to design and complete increasingly huge buildings. The first example of Gothic architecture is the Basilica of Saint Denis. The Basilica of Saint Denis is considered to be the first Gothic building in the world and demonstrates the evolution of Romanesque architecture. The Basilica of Saint Denis was achieved with the features such as first, the flying buttress that consists of a half arch that projects from a building wall. The balancing forces of this flying buttress allow the construction of grander, taller, and more elaborate buildings. Next is the pointed arch. When we think of Gothic architecture, the pointed arch is probably what first comes to mind. As with many of the features of this style, the pointed arch is as much functional as aesthetic. The stronger arches allowed for vertical expansion, being built tall to reach up to the heaven, with their design emphasizing the height of the building. Next one is the vaulted ceiling. Rib vaults are composed of a framework of crossed or diagonal arched ribs, and this can cover vast spaces and provide visual symmetry. Another feature is the stained glass. Large stained glass windows were prevalent in Gothic cathedrals, showcasing a kaleidoscope of colors and patterns as well as detailed biblical scenes. Next example of Gothic architecture is the Basilica Minor de San Sebastian or the San Sebastian Church. The site is located at Quiapo, Manila, and it is the first all-steel Gothic church in Asia. Now let's talk about the characteristics of San Sebastian Church. First is the spires. San Sebastian Gothic spires are pyramidal in shape, and just like other Gothic religious buildings, the vertical representation of the church, especially its spires, promote its connection to heaven. Another characteristics is the rose window, or also known as wheel window. It is over the main door and under the sculpture of the Virgin Mary. The rose window is perhaps dedicated to Virgin Mary because of her title as the mystical rose, and it is also covered by stained glass. Next is the retablo. The retablo is located behind the main altar of the church, and this contains multiple panels housing religious sculptures or the paintings, serving as a focal point for worship and devotion. The other Gothic element that can be found in the church is the long lancet windows. These windows are tall, narrow windows with pointed arches at the top, and these are designed to draw the viewer's gaze upwards and create a sense of verticality. These windows are often adorned with stained glass, allowing natural light to illuminate the space.
Byzantine. Byzantine art, an art produced during the Middle Ages by the Byzantine Empire or Eastern Roman Empire, spanning the 4th to the 15th century, The style is defined by devotional Christian subjects depicted in angular forms with sharp contours, flattened color, and gold decoration. Byzantine architecture, 4th to 15th century, basically focuses in interior rather than the exterior. Churches are characterized by impressive dome ceiling, are eclectic and irregular and use vaults and round arches. Byzantine masonry uses bricks for the entire wall. So masasabi mo na ang isang structure is based from Byzantine architecture if it made of bricks and parang pabilog yung ceiling nila just like from the picture. Ang structure na yan ay from Turkey called Hagia Sophia, which is now a mosque. Pero originally, ang Hagia Sophia is a Byzantine church talaga siya. Pero after sumakop ang Ottoman Turks, they converted it as a mosque. Tapos after ng few centuries, ginawa nila itong museum as a symbol of coexistence and cultural heritage. But in 2020, ginawa nila itong mosque ulit. So from church to mosque to museum and to mosque ulit. Interior decor uses fresco, mosaics, and engraved marbles on the walls and ceilings. So ganyan ang interior ng isang Byzantine church. Puno siya ng mga mosaics and paintings na Christian related.
Let's talk about the Renaissance period. Renaissance. This refers to the era in Europe from the 14th to the 16th century in which a new style in painting, sculpture, and architecture developed after the Gothic era. The Renaissance derived from the French word Renaissance and the Italian word Renascita, which means rebirth. The Renaissance was a period when the scholars and artists began to investigate what they believed to be a revival of classical learning, literature, and art. This period showed the development of naturalism and individualism. When we say naturalism, it is a type of art that pays attention to very accurate and precise details and portrays things as they are. Kumbaga, natural lang siya. Kapag individualism naman, artists introduced new subjects to their work, which reflected the growing emphasis on the individual. It includes portraits, scene of the contemporary life, and historical narratives. For instance, yung painting ni Da Vinci na The Last Supper. It is an example of Renaissance art that reflects individualism. As recognized in the various sculptures produced during that time, there is a strong interest in perfecting the anatomical interest and correctness of the structure. When it comes to paintings naman, it very clear the details that affects its viewers. Papal Commission in Rome made way for the artistry of great artists such as Michelangelo, Raphael, and Da Vinci. When we say Papal Commission, these commissions were focused around the Vatican properties in Rome. In terms of architecture, Pope Julius had St. Peter's Basilica redesigned and rebuilt into massive, extravagant building. And in terms of painting, nag-hire sila ng mga artists tulad nila Michelangelo and Raphael. Si Michelangelo is nagpaint siya nung the Sistine Chapel. Yun yung sa right side ng na picture. And si Raphael, inire siya to paint the Stanze della Signatura. Yun na naman yung sa left side na picture. And ito yung mga artwork ng mga great artists tulad ni Michelangelo, Raphael, and Da Vinci during Renaissance period. In terms of architecture, the best example of influence of Renaissance in the Philippines is yung UST main building ni Father Roque Ruano. And thus the Renaissance art movement. Era. The Baroque era, this refers to a cultural and art movement that characterized Europe from the 17th century. The term Baroque derived from the Portuguese word
Barroco, meaning a regular furl or stone. This period opened up to diverse styles of art seen in a large-scale mural and ceiling paintings, wherein intimate and revealing works in painting and sketches are very evident. Royal commissions gave birth to various artworks for the king and queen. Baroque art movement emphasizes dramatic, exaggerated motion and clear or easily interpreted detail. Baroque architecture were characterized by dramatic buildings still holding its antique forms but were modified. San Agustin Church of Manila, built on 1607, is an example of early Baroque art style. This church has the closest resemblance to Spanish architecture, wherein we see austere exteriors with only a few ornaments on the entrance. When it comes to painting, the main features of Baroque manifestations are drama, deep colors, dramatic light, sharp shadows, and dark backgrounds, wherein artists emphasize stark contrasts, passion, and tension, often choosing to depict the moment preceding an event instead of its occurrence. Example of this art movement in terms of painting is The Girl with a Pearl Earring by Johannes Vermeer on 1665.
Neoclassicism. Neoclassicism is a movement in Europe in late 18th century to early 19th century. This is a reaction against the Baroque period or Rococo style, giving emphasis on elegance and sophistication, which gives importance to symmetry and basic classical geometrical style. Ang example ng Neoclassicism is yung Museo Nacional del Prado, an art museum in Madrid, Spain. Neoclassicism architecture. Neoclassical architecture is characterized by grandeur of scale, simplicity of geometric forms, Greek, especially Doric or Roman detail, dramatic use of columns and a preference for blank walls. Domes and towers are replaced with flat roofing for buildings, just like yung two examples sa baba, the National Museum and Manila City Hall. And ang example rin ng Neoclassicism is sa Tuguay is yung building sa may CSU Andros, yung entrance dun, may Greek and Roman detail siya.
So that concludes our topic, no? And we hope na may natutunan po kayo ngayon and may mga bagong ideas or may mga bagong knowledge po kayong nakuha, especially sa mga unique characteristics and yung influences ng different periods dito sa Philippine architecture. So baka next time, pag naka-encounter kayo ng kakaibang building or kakaibang simbahan, masasabi ninyo na, uy, baka influence yan ng Greek o kaya naman ng Roman, pwede din ng Renaissance period. So, sa CSU pa nga lang is makikita na natin yung influence ng mga different periods sa ating mga buildings. Pansin nyo yung mga columns, para siyang may pagka-hint ng Doric, no? And also sa mga ibang campuses din, ganun din po yung architectural style nila. So, ayun lamang po and salamat.